Buon pomeriggio a tutti.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Distance support. I can be a protagonist in my own country. Today we are going to hear from some protagonists how a simple way of helping can change a person's life and generate a positive impact not only in the country where this takes place, but also in everybody and all the stakeholders involved. It is a very simple method. It can be available to everybody, and we'll try to describe this through the voice of all the speakers. I'm going to introduce them. We have Rose Busingye. Many of you know her. Rose Busingye is the director of the Meeting Point International, not-for-profit organization in Uganda established in 1993, which works in Kampala, Uganda. It is supported by AVSI and helps about 1,300 kids with distance support. Then we have Lamas Maiyah. Lamas Maiyah comes from Kenya. He is 17 years old and he attends the Cardinal Otunga school. It is a secondary school in Nairobi, and he will talk about his experience as a student supported by distance support. Then we have Damiano Tommasi. There's no need to introduce him. He's president of the Italian Footballers Association, which together with AVSI is carrying out a project in Uganda. He will talk about this, and he will let us understand how sport can also contribute to the growth of people and kids. Then we have Massimo Favilli. Who's a director of a member of Unicoop Tirreno, which has been supporting for many years hundreds of young people all around the world. And then we have Giorgio Vittadini, president of the Foundation for Subsidiarity. And he will help us understand the real meaning of distance support. He was an advocate for this session, especially he was really keen on having it at this historical moment. We have a short video of about a minute and a half, which describes what distance support is.
Oggi per Giusy è un giorno speciale.
Today for Jules it is a special day because she received a new surprise by Tabita. It is one of the many moments they've been sharing for years as a single family. In the past, for Tabita, life was difficult, fear, insecurity, lack of support. But with the distant support of Giusy, everything has changed. Now she attends school, and a different story has begun for her. Now Tabita knows that she can learn, her dreams have a chance. But there's so many kids that still need to be helped, and AVSI works to build a world where children can be protagonists of their present and of their future. AVSI is present all around the world and it supports children. You can also help a child grow and believe in themselves. I started the experience of distance support with two kids of the Luigi Giussani Primary School in Kampala. When I saw them arriving with their school uniforms, and with their smile and with the joy of starting a new day at school, I had a real motivation to continue this experience of distance support. You can also change the destiny of Miriam, Rita, Yara, Asan, many other kids. We are never far enough to be able to meet. Support now a kid with distance support and with AVSI.
Ecco,
Very well. I would like to start off with Lamas, and I would like to ask you to tell us about your experience. What has been the distance support for you over these years when you could attend the school, in your school years, in your education? Please, you have the floor.
Lamas.
Lamas will speak English and there will be simultaneous interpretation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm glad to be in Italy this evening, and I'm enjoying the good delicacies of Italy and the friendship in Italy. Today, I'm here to speak about my experience with AVSI, actually with my education. So, I'm Lamas Maiyah from Kenya, Nairobi, specifically from Kibera slum. And I will say that it has not been easy, just like any other child from Kibera. I will say it has not been easy due to bad environment in Kibera, poor sanitation, lack of basic needs like food. So it has not been so easy, and I can tell that. My life started in Kibera, where I was born, and I went to a nearby public school, which is inside the slum. And I can say that my early schooling was not easy, since there are punishments, there are harsh teachers, poor environment of education in the school that I was. And this made me to have to perform poorly in my education. This made me to not to answer questions in class, not to ask or to know where I didn't know. For this reason, my performance was very bad, and it continued like this until I reached class 5, where it means that when you are in class 5 in Kenya, it means that if you are remaining with 3 years, then you do national exam in Kenya. So it was a big worry, because in Kenya, for you to be a good student, maybe you should get at least a half of the marks, which was 250 marks out of 500. And by then I was getting 150 marks. So it became a big worry for my parents and my family, and they had to think for a good option for me to continue with my education. Because for sure I'll say that I was losing hope in education, and actually I wanted to quit. I wanted just to become a normal street boy in the slum. But because mom had a motherhood spirit, she had to think very fast. So she thought of a school in Kibera, which is called Paradise all over in Kibera. Because of its good environment, people around Kibera, they call it Little Prince the Paradise. So for sure, every child in Kibera would wish to be in such a school. So my mom thought very fast for my chance to be in Little Prince School. And she approached Mr. Anthony, the principal of Little Prince School. And when she approached her, by miracle, God gave me a chance in Little Prince, and I was called for an interview. Unfortunately, when I went for an interview, I failed. because I didn't have anything in brain, because in other school I didn't have time to study because of bad environment and bad teachers maybe. So I failed the interview. But I was given an option by Mr. Anton, the head teacher of Little Prince School. And he told me, you can either, instead of going to class 6, start class 5, or you go back to your school. So for me, since I wanted to be in paradise, I decided to start class 5. So starting class 5, it was interesting in Little Prince. And life and education became interesting again. Life was no longer hard. There were good food in school, good teachers, and good friends. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where I met AVSI, who supported me in school. I'll say in brief that when I went to Little Prince, I can say that this was my restoration year. When I remember this year, I say truly this was my year that I started education. Because I stayed in Little Prince for 2 months, and when I did my first examination, I was among the top students in class. And in the other school, I was the last student since I started. So something was different at least. So this brought hope in my life and in my family. And so it meant that yes, I can. And I remember my first day in Little Prince for admission. Mr. Anthony, the head teacher of Little Prince School, he told me, Lamas, your mom depends on you, and work hard and remove mom from slum. And she told me, Lamas, yes, you can. So this has been pushing me every morning since I went to Little Prince for admission. So I've been waking up and telling myself, yes, I can. So this has really encouraged me each and every day since I was told such a thing by this principal of the school. So with friendly teachers, with humble teachers, with good environment, I started performing well in class, and I became the top student in class, among the top students in class. And this showed that I had great future in my education. Ladies and gentlemen, life continued in Little Prince, or in paradise. And I really, really enjoyed life in Little Prince. And I desire to continue with AVSI, with the journey of AVSI. So my brother, who was in Cardinal Otunga, Ignatius Juma, he was in Cardinal by then, and he was telling me Little Prince is paradise, but Cardinal Otunga School is a double paradise. So I really, really desire to be in a double paradise school. So in mind, I didn't have any other school in mind to go after Little Prince. Instead, I had to go to Cardinal Otunga. I had approached one of my educators called Eda, who died long time ago. I mean, a few months ago. An educator who was really loving to me, who she encouraged me and made me different from street children in Kibera. When we are coming for holidays, she could tell me, Lamas, please don't take bang with street children. And I think through her, it's really what I am today, that I've never used any drug in the slum because of her reminding me every now and then. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I told her that I want to go to Cardinal Otunga after Little Prince, she laughed and said, "You first study in primary, then we'll know later." So life continued, and I remember it was a 30th anniversary of AVSI in Little Prince School. AVSI was celebrating 30 anniversary years in Kenya. And I approached the principal of Cardinal Otunga School, Madam Veronica. And I told her, "Madam, I want to come to Cardinal Otunga School after primary." And she told me, "Cardinal Otunga School is there, just get 380 marks. But you know, getting 380 marks was too much. So I started bargaining with her. I told her, "No, it is too much. Reduce." Then she reduced up to 350. I said no. She reduced up to, then finally she agreed to get that I should get 300 marks and above. And I said, now I can go to Cardinal after primary, because I was sure I can get 300 marks and above. So, ladies and gentlemen, I reached class 8 where I did my national exams. And I got 305 marks. And I called Madam Veronica and I told her, Grazie, thank you. Thank you. So, getting 305 marks, I called Madam Veronica and I told her, "You told me to get 300 marks and above." Then I was to come to Cardinal after getting these marks. She told me the school is there, but there is one problem. The problem is accommodation. So do you know what? It was impossible to go to Cardinal Otunga School. And this had been my dream, had been my dream. So I had to face the reality, and I had to understand there's no Cardinal Otunga School anymore. So in my heart, I said that no, I will not continue the schooling. Instead, I'll stay at home. But my mom was so strict and she could not allow this. Instead, she looked for a public school in the eastern part of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, public schools in Kenya, they are not good. So this meant that I had gone back to hell before going to Little Prince. I remember when I joined the high school, the public school, the first day or the first week, the bell rang and I was just walking slowly to class. And the school president found me and asked me, "Why are you walking?" Because in Little Prince, my head teacher, Mr. Anthony, used to tell us that, no, there's no need to walk, there's no need to run in class, just walk but observe time. So I was walking slowly to class. And in Little Prince, they used to tell us that always ask why, where you don't understand. So I asked the school president, "Why should I run?" This was a rude question to them. I'll not forget this day, because I was taken to a chamber. When I say a chamber, I mean a cell. And in the cell, I was really, really tortured. They said I am a terrorist of discipline. So I was really beaten up. And I said I'll not continue with this school. So my first exam in high school, I got a D minor. Of which every Form 1 in high school is expected to get at least a B plus and above. So my first exam in high school, I got a D minor, the worst grade. So this was too bad for my family and also for me. And ladies and gentlemen, this continued for many years. I mean, for many months until I finished Form 1. At the end of the year, I got an E, the last grade in Kenya. And I became the last student in class. So it was very, very bad. So my primary teachers could ask me, you performed well in primary, what's happening? But I was telling them the teachers are very harsh for me. Because I had a lot of fear in class, I could not ask any question. So this made me to perform badly in the whole year. So getting the last grade in high school in Form 1, the last term, it became a worry again to mom. And she started pushing again. For sure, a mother remains to be a mother. And she was so concerned about my performance. And she went to Madam Veronica and told Madam Veronica, no, my son is not performing well. He got an E. But Madam Veronica said, what's the problem? He performed well in primary. Then she decided to call me for an interview in Cardinal Otunga school. The Double Paradise School. I did the interview and failed. But I was given a chance to start Form 1. And for now, I can say since I went to Cardinal Otunga school, I'm performing more better. I'm among the top students in class. And I really appreciate AVSI for the journey. It's through them that I'm here where I am today. So thank you, AVSI. May God bless you. Grazie all of you for hearing me. Thank you. Thank you.
Grazie a Lamas.
Thank you very much to Lamas for your speech. First of all, we have to understand that he's been living in the slum of Kibera, among the worst in the world, where there's about 1 million people under very terrible conditions. And he managed to embark on a journey, and he was strong enough to embark on this journey thanks to school. He said that he went to Little Prince, he was reborn when he went there, and then he went to Cardinal Otunga. So this is the importance of some educational contexts in personal growth, in people's development. Starting from very, very difficult situations where there's violence, where children are abandoned. Now, Rose, maybe you can talk to us about the meaning of support distance for the community, because with your organization, you're working in another 2 slums in Uganda, in Kampala, with women, sick women. What does that mean for the community where you are living, where your organization is operating? First of all, I'd like to give a warm thanks to AVSI and the Communal Liberation Movement, because they allowed me to use a support distance, which to me was a sort of journey, adventure, to understand who I am and who these children are. I learned from Don Giussani that it is important to understand who the man is. and what values are. When I started, everything was taken for granted. It was taken for granted that a sick person should take medicines, and a child could go to school just by paying. But no children were going to school. They preferred staying and living on the street rather than going to school. And women preferred dying rather than taking medicines. I remember a young boy called Francis. I was desperate. He was sent to school, but he never went to school. And every day he said that he had some disease. I have stomachache. I'm sick. I don't feel well. And one day he told me, when I was with my mother, I was very well, but now she died, and I lost the only point of reference for me. And at that point, I realized something. Father Giussani helped me discover that I'm not helping poor people. I'm not feeding people just because they are poor and because they're sick, or just because children need to go to school. I'm helping other people because they have an infinite value for me. I want these people to be happy. I want to find out what their desires are. And when I found out that I do have an infinite value, I myself have an infinite value, it's clear that at the beginning you tell other people you have an infinite value, and to me it was obvious that other people would understand, but nobody understood me, and therefore I had a crisis. But Father Giussani helped me quite a lot and made me discover that the value, first of all, had to be searched in myself. And this is what I did. I thought that finding the value in myself was something selfish. But Father Giussani told me that you cannot give what you don't have. And this is something I have to do for the others, for my children, for sick people. I'll give you an example. There were two kids who were in the school that you see just behind me. One day, they stole the professor's mobile phone. And when they stole this mobile phone, somebody asked them, did you steal it? They said, no, it's not our fault. We didn't do anything. So they sent these kids to me, and when they came to me, I asked them, where's the mobile phone? They took the mobile phone out of their pocket and they gave it to me. And so I asked them, why are you giving it to me and you haven't given it to your professor? And they said to me, you want us to tell you the truth. Then there's another problem. Another example, rather. My women found that two kids ate very badly. There was a woman that had just given birth to a baby in another center, and her milk had been sold. And the women said, oh, look, they've sold the baby's milk. They sold it. And I said, look, don't be worried, because for them, this baby was no one to you, this baby has a value. It's not their fault, because if you don't find out who you are, you don't know who other people are. You cannot understand who other people are. So, what is the meaning of people? This is the problem. And this is what makes me work every day. Because in this case, the milk was just a tool. Was just a tool to say to this baby, you have an infinite value for me. You are not the milk, but you're much more important than this milk. And I'm taking care of you. And what I have inside me is what you have inside you, is what you have inside yourself. So I cannot condemn the people who have stolen the milk to this baby. So when I came here, they sent me a picture where they were giving the milk to this baby. Literally drowned this baby with milk. So charity is knowledge. And through charity and knowledge, I can look at other people for what they really are. It's not the way they look like. When you are in front of somebody else, you don't have to look at the way they are, but you have to look inside them. You are not the mobile phone that you have stolen. You are not the milk that I'm giving you. And this is a journey that we made together with women. And these women wanted to have the school that you see here in the video. They wanted to have a beautiful school. They wanted to have a school where people can teach maths and discover their own values, teach history and find their own value. It's funny because I wanted to have an hospital and they said to me, no, you will need to educate nurses and doctors. Then they told me that I didn't have money. So, thank you to AVSI, because I'm just like a kid who's moving his first steps and wants to stand up. So I said, I don't have this money. And so these women started to build necklaces, to make necklaces. And they sold many of them, 48,000 necklaces. AVSI helped us. And with the money they made, they built this first part of the school. And I'm really very proud for that. At the beginning, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that a boy could learn maths by discovering his own value. It's just like an aircraft taking off. And we see that a baby after 2 weeks starts smiling and starts living, just like the young people in Lamas slum. Now, people were very suspicious about this school. They didn't know what there was inside. There was a lot of silence, so they said to themselves, God knows what's happening inside that school. Well, now we are one of the first schools in Uganda. And Jacqueline, a girl, this year took the exam with all the students at a national level. And she was the best student in the exam. And she was taking these exams together with students, rich students, students from rich families. So the school is giving its results. The school is successful. We see the results of what Father Giussani taught us. It's just like a seed. It's just like a seed that is put and planted in the hearts of those children. Clearly, you need to wait for this seed to grow. And now it's growing. Now I'm a witness of this wonder, and I'm watching like a wave going from children to mothers, from mothers to children, a wave going back and forth, and coming back to me too, because to educate these children, I tell them, come with me, and the children start walking with me. And I tell them, I'm not the truth. I'm following the truth. Come with me. These young people help me, correct me, and I correct them mutually. It's a mutual correction. It's an education between peers. This is the only possible way forward. And this is how you can discover the meaning of everything surrounding us. In school, these kids tried to deny that they had stolen something. But then the magic came true. This is a method to walk together. I myself didn't have clear in my mind that this school could be so successful, could have such results. And this is why I warmly thank Giampaolo. Because I always pushed him to do something that maybe he didn't want to do. I remember that the first time I told him, nah, this is a very small school. And when he came over, he said, is that the small school you were talking about? So this is why I understood, thanks to Father Giussani, I understood who the man is. And it's through the relation that you become important. To Father Giussani, I was important. The way he looked at me as if someone important, something valuable. So through my work, I'm really shouting out loud, saying that life has a meaning, has a value. To me, this is something that has become more important, and I have increasingly realized that over the time. And the same applies to women and their children. I've already said we need patience. You need patience to plant seeds. Maybe then you have to take a step back. You have to be patient again. Changing young people requires waiting. Without waiting, without proposing, without changing, there's a lot of rebellion. Nothing is supporting us. Without that, children and young people stay in their own world. If they grow in the awareness of who they are, they open up their horizons, and they can better understand what they have to study. And this way, they achieve better results. I also wish to thank the people who help me, the donors, those who make a distance support possible. I would like to embrace them one by one because without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So thank you. Thank you, Rose. While Rose was speaking, you could see the images of Luigi Giussani Secondary School. It is a beautiful school. It is a small gem, I would say, that was built thanks to a women's contribution. It was actually the women that built these necklaces that many of you bought. Now they're still at AVSI stand, and they were used to pay for the school. So the women actually played a very important role, and this school is also giving very important results in terms of teaching because, as Lamas and as Rose were saying, in these countries, there's a sort of paradox. The educational system is very, very competitive, much more competitive than ours, because if you don't get some marks, you cannot go to some secondary schools, and if you don't go to secondary school, you cannot go to university. So there is a harsh competition. So students have to get good marks, otherwise they cannot continue their own education. Otherwise, they're left out from the possibility to continue their own education. But that has been possible, as Rose was saying, in this context, even in this context, by realizing one's own values. Now we will continue with Massimo Favilli from Unicoop Tirreno. You are a company, you're doing business, you are a cooperative. You've been working with AVSI on distance support since 2001. What has been the impact on your customers and your partners and the people working with you in general?
Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me and for giving us the opportunity to share our experience in the distance support enterprise. I'll be very brief in saying what Unicoop Tirreno is about. We are part of the Coop supermarket network. And I have a bit of a story to begin with. That's something that happened to me last September. I was with a delegation of AVSI, and I went to Kampala in Uganda. And since the very beginning when we arrived, we visited the schools that we could see in the video a moment ago. These schools raised in the middle of misery, and they're so nice and clean, and they're so much full of activities. That's a wonderful thing to see. As regards the primary school, I talked to the schoolmaster there. The kids knew that some supporters were going to come to pay a visit, and I asked them what the kids knew about the supporters and the subjects that help and support them in their education. And the kids, he said that, in fact, the kids are really curious to know this Unicoop Tirreno gentleman that in this school has about 20 supported kids. We have 171 support projects with AVSI. So since 2001, we have been supporting thousands of children. And 40 kids are in Uganda, divided into 2 schools. And these kids were really curious to know this Unicoop Tirreno gentleman. So we prepared a joke, and I introduced myself as a Unicoop Tirreno gentleman, this generous man from Italy that was supporting kids. But then after a minute, we broke the joke, and I talked about the real facts and figures. I mean, the cooperative is not just one person or a couple of persons. It's 600,000 members, in Unicoop, Tirreno. When we went there, we really had the chance to understand the value of what we do. Our company's aim is commercial. We want to sell healthy and cheap products that are respectful of the supply chain, but as a cooperative, we also have many other aims that are enshrined in our constitutive acts, and we try to pursue these aims with different initiatives, such as support initiatives in developing countries, and in particular in all those situations where there is the need to provide support to people in need. So it is part and parcel of our essence of our company to promote solidarity projects and to contribute to living in a society that is fair and that it is more inclusive. Our relationship with AVSI dates back to 2001, so it's been now 18 years. Some colleagues in our cooperative, that was a random thing, decided to give distance support to some kids. It was about 3 or 4, and we decided to get in touch with AVSI as a reference subject. And I must say that there's been great continuity over time, and this is important. This is so because there is credibility, there is mutual respect in our own roles, and for us, AVSI is an interlocutor that can provide guarantees in all respects. And on my side, I must say that the cooperative pursues these activities not just as a marketing action, but it is more focused on sharing a project. And we hope to continue over time so that all the kids that received support can get to 18 years of age and continue their studies. So we began with about 3-4 support initiatives, and then we continued up to the big number I mentioned before. And how did we go about it? Well, we decided to involve more and more people, considering that there are 600,000 members in our cooperative. So we have designed a strategy in our commercial activities. There is a fidelity catalog where the members can obtain points, so they could get rewards or prizes or tokens. And we decided to add to this fidelity catalog these solidarity initiatives by promoting distance support. So one, by using the reward points, could give some help to people in need. Of course, the cooperative then complements this kind of support. It's not just about the value of the individual member that is at stake. We double basically the amount of money that is used for the initiatives, and we try to give support to the social bases that decided to use their points in this way. Last year we had 4,488 members that decided to use their points with these solidarity projects, including distance support. I believe that this number can add extra value, if possible, to the economic figure, to the economic data that made it possible to support all these kids. Well, reaching thousands of people and talking about solidarity projects and helping them understand the meaning behind these projects and having such a big return implies great commitment, and we have great satisfaction when we do this, and this satisfaction equals the economic return. That's really an enriching experience, seeing that people can appreciate the value of distance support and understanding the importance of allowing young generations to grow up and be educated in their places of origin. I may get to my conclusion now. I wonder whether there might be some more space afterwards, but I wanted to add final notes about this trip to Uganda. When we left the schools, a lady working at the school canteen, who was the mother of 2 students attending the primary school and living in the Kireka slum, wanted to meet me personally, and she hugged me. And she burst into tears. She was so moved. And those tears had a very profound meaning, much more profound than all the feelings, all the sensations that I went through during the trip. Those tears are with me, and I try to convey them to the members of our cooperative when we talk, to help them understand how a person who thanks us can really project us to a need which cannot be taken for granted, that is school education, schooling. This is so important to guarantee the future of these kids. And this also confirms that a small action can do a lot. This is my experience. This is what I could see in the eyes of these kids that are so eager to learn. I could see the willingness and the commitment of teachers that are good teachers and that spend a lot of energy in their job. And I could see those beautiful schools that arise in areas of misery and poverty. And I listened to the stories of the women who work with Rose, who try to give a future to their children. Well, I believe that distance support does not change the life of one single person, of the kid receiving the support, which would be a lot by itself. But in fact, it changes an entire community. Thank you.
Adesso chiederei a
Now I will ask to Damiano Tommasi to tell us what they've been doing in Uganda. By chance, we started a collaboration with them. We got to know each other, and we saw that we tackled issues in the same way. So it will tell us how sports can help these kids grow, because most of the kids they are working with are given support, distance support. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm here because everything started from here. The member of our council got to know, met Rose. I'm the chairman of the Italian Footballers Association, that has been representing professional footballers for the past 50 years. First, it was set up as a trade union before football became professional. And now the association is also joined by non-professional footballers, both men and women. So the association now has 18,000 members. Less than 3,000 are professional footballers. What have we got to do with this? Some people say that we should only be a trade union, we should be an association representing the most privileged people. But actually, there's a whole world speaking through Ebola. Luca met Rose, saw the Luigi Giussani High School, and the need to rebuild the football field and the facility, the football facility. So our association was involved in financing the restoration of the football field, but we wanted to do something more. Some years ago, we opened a junior department. This is how we call it, and we published a handbook on our own model to do sports, in this case football, in order to give tools to our members, former professional footballers who are working with kids and young people. This is the staff. In the picture, you can see the staff that went down to Kampala for 1 week to work with the kids and the teachers of Luigi Giussani School. We wanted to finance a football field, but in practice, we also wanted to teach how to use this field, which is not just a green area, but can be much more than that. They are former professional footballers, so football for them was a job. And for years now, they are traveling around Italy and other countries to explain what football can do for people. So we've been organizing activities with the kids. So this is what we do in our daily activities in Italy. Together with our former or present professional footballers. We go to football schools and sports associations. We do training with the kids. We train their coaches and we meet their families. During the summer camps, and at least once a year, also, parents are given a training, and the nice thing that it was that in Kampala, on the last day, the mothers in Kampala wanted to join the training with our coaches. So that they could understand what sports is for their kids and children. If you remember, I think you all remember the first coach you had in your life, in your first sports. It's just like the first teacher. We all remember our first teacher. So the feelings for a passion for a game does have an enormous impact on our education and training. In our journey to Uganda, together with CDO Sports, AVSI, and Luca Rossettini, something more important came about. As I said before, we also want to give a future to professional footballers who stop working, basically, and playing football at 35. Many footballers stop working without having a training, without having a qualification, and we want to give them tools, and we want them to help kids and give them tools to teach them what football has been for them. So this is how we worked on cooperation. Each one of you, I think, has heard the news. In these countries, very often kids are exploited to make money because they are taken to then become footballers in other countries. And this is one of the reasons why many important people in the football world have opened up their own schools, academies. But the football activity, playing football in this country, in these countries, means first and foremost creating a community. Before I heard something. People were mentioning dialogue and inclusion. I think that many of you are trainers. And when you want to involve people, maybe you play a game with a ball. And the people who have the ball are entitled to speak. Now, this is what football is. Everyone in football is entitled to live in a community. Everyone is entitled to express oneself and to use their own talent. And this is also a way to overcome cultural barriers. In countries which are far away from us, but use the same language. So by using a ball in football, you can outreach people. So our coaches went down to Kampala. They could learn, they could see, they could organize a sports activity with their kids. So when we do our activities, we connect words with technical gestures. So trust with the ball that is passed to somebody else. You pass the ball to someone you trust. So the technical gesture of passing the ball, sometimes you make a mistake in passing the ball because maybe you do not trust the person you're passing the ball to, or maybe you would like to pass the ball to someone else. When we talk about bravery, dribbling, we connect bravery and dribbling. Every gesture is important from a technical point of view, but you need to understand why you are making that gesture. Oftentimes, you talk about football. We talk about football and sports as a way to learn living, and this is a true example. Now, talking about talent searching, unfortunately, in Italy, sports is seen from the perspective of winners and people who have become professional, who can become professionals. And people don't think about what sports can be for the community. The challenge that we are trying to tackle together, CDO Sports and AVSI, is to tell what sports can become in distance support and in cooperation activities in order to feel closer to people. I think we all can think, I think you all know about migrants coming to Italy, crossing the Mediterranean to come and live in Europe, and they wear a football T-shirt. I hope that our association will be able to train people who have worked out of their passion and for them to be able to tell what football has been for them. We've helped many young people through our projects, and many people who are working with us come back to Italy, and they are very struck by what they have seen. What is difficult sometimes to do is to manage parents, because each one of us has a small champion at home. We often forget that we have a person living with us, a person that can grow through competition and sports. It's not the result that is important. It is competing that is important. Before we were mentioning about the big competitiveness in these countries. You have to be able to compete. You have to exploit the moments when you fall down to then start off again. Like our friend Lamas was saying before, yes, I can. Rose was speaking about women who wanted to play a role. This is a language that we use every day, and we forget that this language comes from sport. Physically, when you have a football field, you play a role. You start playing. So this is a way to learn, and this is one of the tools that can be used by people working in those countries and by the people living in those countries. Sometimes people forget what sports has been for us and what can be for us. People usually talk about an elite sports. We live in a society where, unfortunately, happiness is measured in money. A footballer has to think about values. Rose mentioned that she was brave enough because she was able to discover her own value, to see the value in others. People often do forget about the value of footballers. I'm the chairman of the Footballers Associations, and unfortunately, in the budgets, in the financial statements of football clubs, footballers are an asset, like a real estate, like a house. They have an economic and monetary value. To me, this is the opposite of sports. The value of a person cannot be measured in money. And this is a paradox. So, in the end, our contribution is much less than what is given to us when we help these people. So hopefully we will have an increasing number of former professionals working with us, accepting the idea of exporting Italian football, telling people how sports can really be a form of dialogue, overcoming any obstacle and barrier. Simone Perrotta is a world champion and is cooperating with us. He was one of the symbols of Italian football and is now working as the person in charge of the junior department. I hope that we will continue to use this approach and we will be able to grow and convey a message of a football which is not what you can read in newspapers, but something that can make us proud. We export Italian football in countries where the T-shirt of AC Milan, of the International, of Juventus is everywhere. So thank you very much, Rose, for involving us, and hopefully there will be in future other camps like the one that we organized in Kampala.
Grazie.
Thank you for your personal commitment too, because Damiano went directly to Uganda and we could enjoy this experience together. Now, I would like to ask Giorgio Vittadini about distance support. We have heard from different colleagues, and we see that distance support can give a person a chance to be a protagonist. It is an aid to rediscover the values, the community, to share experiences, but more often than not, this seems to be a marginal thing. What people say is that to create real development, real cooperation, systems are needed, policies are needed. So how can we respond to this criticism? Because we've heard really positive experiences, and these could be the heart of the whole issue. I would like to mention a few points. Migrant is making headlines every single day, and we just debate over what we can do with the ships coming from Libya and other countries. Should we stop them? Should we not stop them? When they're stopped, everybody's happy, but these people, we are aware that these people do not leave from Libya or nearby countries, they leave from faraway countries, because the situation in Africa is a situation of neo-colonialism. This is the first point. Africa, at the moment, as Pope Francis said, this is a third piecemeal world war. It is at a war between China, Russia, and the United States. China is leading the way to get hold of raw materials and to export people from there. Russia also, there's an article that was published on the Subsidiarity newspaper the other day. Russia has now a new global strategy for the same reason. France has always been present. We know that there is the sub-Saharan area that is a francophone area, and the United States doesn't really want to disappear from there. And all of them have this idea of taking advantage of raw materials with different means. For example, by setting governments that are in favor of one or the other party, or fueling conflicts, and also not just for the raw materials, but also for exporting weapons. And we are involved in this because Italy is a weapon exporting country. And we also have to consider the methods through which capitalism was created. We saw that at the beginning of the 19th century, and this implies the relocation of people from areas that are then cultivated intensively to create, to produce food, to produce grains, and that's what happened in the United Kingdom, for example, at the beginning of capitalism. If we add to all this global warming, well, we can understand very well what global warming means there, because there's an increase in the desertification, there's tribal conflicts. Exiting colonialism without intelligence led to the creation of countries that, because of the way they were created, generated conflicts. We know that the African civilization is present in areas where there's big mountains, there's big geographical features. So if borders are created just by tracing a line on a map, then conflicts are generated. So Africa is still held in such a situation. And so the exodus that is taking place is not by chance, and this exodus is into two directions. One is towards big metropolitan areas, which are the worst metropolitan areas of the world. These are slums where people from the countryside go, and then there is the other direction, which is the west. So it is a really dramatic situation. Then the other point refers to what Mr. Silvestri said, aid. I would like you to read a book by Giuseppe Folloni in collaboration with AVSI and other subjects on the importance of the human elements and the roots of development. In the first part of this book, there is an analysis of the classic method of development. Aid given to governments, for example, by Western countries, or big international organizations such as the International Monetary Fund and others. Well, this kind of aid, for the most part, favored corrupted dictators, because the idea of Western democracy is an idea that we have. In many of these countries, even if there is a democracy, there is in fact a dictatorship. There's aid, there's funding arriving, and these are given to dictators that may keep for their inner circle or may use them to build weapons. So they're not used to manage raw materials. Whenever there is an action at the state level, the aids get lost because they get to the wrong place. Then the next step concerns NGOs' support, NGOs' help. This kind of help has decreased enormously. Our country disinvested a lot. There is no more investment in the third world. But then there's something else that happens, which is quite common, as in the traditional missionary actions in the past. It is not enough to bring missionary aid in Africa, because this kind of experience run the risk of not being managed. Let's consider the example of many missionaries of some religious orders that took action in Africa, including Christian orders. What happens when these orders disappear because there's not many vocations? The works that they started get lost because the action of missionaries is generous, but it is not capable of generating responsibility around it. There's entire hospitals and schools that stop because there's nobody who is capable of continuing the activity there. And the same applies to NGOs. Sometimes NGOs carry out environmental projects for building wells and actions in agriculture or in business, but if they do not have an impact on the local stakeholders, they are doomed to end. So you may well understand that this kind of action, not just a state action, but it may also involve associations from religious orders, religious organizations, or lay associations. Well, they are not effective in the long run because they do not generate local ability. I was talking to an entrepreneur who told me about a big hospital that was built in a country in Africa that used to be run by religious people. Now those religious people got old and there's just one left there, and people are wondering how can the hospital continue its activity. Then these people will move back to Europe, and then when there's no local involvement in the community, everything crumbles, everything collapses. AVSI's intervention through distance support is something new, totally new, not just about the stories, but also about the personal profile. And why is it so? Let's analyze this. The methodology is quite simple. Funds are collected from people in the developed West. These are not governments, they're not big organizations, these are people. And these people are asked to provide some money which is then used in a way that is not wasted, because this money is given to the individual families. But again, there's, for example, the food bank and other food-related initiatives. We know that if these resources get to poor families, then they may be wasted for something else. We know that consumerism is everywhere. I remember years ago that I went to the Amazon for AVSI in Rio de Manaus. I could see all the huts with satellite television systems. So what does that mean? The distance support that we want to use is aimed at funding studies, funding education. So that way it's not wasted, because it supports the educational process. This is a profoundly intelligent action. 24,000 distance support initiatives. 20 means 24,000 people that will be educated for their entire educational process with secure funding, secure support. And there is a real objective. This is an innovative action. Sometimes we think that money should not be wasted in many useless initiatives, and there should not be useless debates. On the other hand, the resources should really be used in an effective way, helping people in their place of origin. Instead of 24,000 people, we could have 240,000 people or 24 million people. So what is that? It is the education of the I, of the person. Caron mentions this as the crucial development of the subject. This intervention of AVSI with distance support helps creating subjects, physical, real people that can be the protagonists of Africa, because these people study, they have an education, they take on responsibilities, they learn a job, they learn skills. This is the intervention of the future. This intervention is not just supported by AVSI. Well, if it was also supported by the government, the situation could really change, even in terms of migration flows, because people do not migrate because they are happy to leave their country. They migrate, as we did. 26 million Italian people in the past migrated because they were poor, they had no job, they had no food. So these actions can be really a real and good response to poverty. So I'm grateful to Mr. Silvestri for what he has done, and all of us involved in this are creating and building the future of Africa. They're doing this on the persons with whom our relationship will continue to exist. These relationships with the families are direct relationships, but the intervention here is also innovative. If politicians considered this kind of intervention, it would be possible to change the view of the issue of migrant flows, and it would be a totally change of perspective, not considering these people as a kind of good that we do not want, and we want just get rid of them. Thank you.
Le parole che ha detto
The words said by Vittadini are very interesting, and they give us a great challenge, because there's a lot to do, but we also have great responsibility. As in, we are responsible for contributing to the growth of somebody. This is the biggest responsibility we might have. Only by participating in the creation of people, subjects, can we positively contribute to the African development and to ourselves. I would like now to call it an end. Thank you very much to all the speakers. because they helped us understand from different perspectives as Rose and Favilli said, what the value of a small gesture like this can be, the impact it can have on people's lives and on the life of all societies. At the AVSI stand, you can see the sky over Kibeira, the children benefiting from distance support, and the schools and the kids of the schools who had an experience with Dante, and therefore you can better understand Lamas, our friend, and what he told us. In Banca Intesa, there is a crowdfunding initiative for kids in Kenya, to which you can participate. And last point, Vittadini was talking about the creation of a subject. What I was most struck by in the distance support is that even during my last journey to Rwanda and Burundi, there's many groups of former kids who are now adults who have benefited from distance support. Today, they are teachers, doctors, they work at state level, and they are the managerial class of that country, and they benefited from support distance, and they are very grateful for the work that the help that they have been given. It's like Lamas, who they have had some support, and now they are creating association, and they're helping AVSI, and they're helping us as volunteers. So they have become aware of what they have received, and to us, this is the first sign of acknowledgement of the importance of distance support. Many Italian citizens, many groups, many schools have been able to contribute. This is a very important sign. So clearly, I do invite you to join this type of project in order to participate to the building of something more important. It really gives a very important contribution. And thank you very much for joining us here this evening. And I now tell you that the meeting lives off our donations, so I do invite you to donate for the meeting at the stands Dona Ora, Donate Now, which you can see with a red heart. Thank you once again.